Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stiltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. The last few years or so, I've been featuring each regional Wild King's daughter and getting to know their stories a little bit better. There are over 700 of them. We are now on episode 194. Can you believe it? Um, but before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. The first three keep you in the know. Subscribe, like, and notify. All that helps out the logarithms of YouTube and gets my name out there. And then next couple of ways are ways to help the channel grow. Coffee, which is a standalone payment, one-time payment. And then we have Patreon, which is a monthly subscription. And then we have the super thanks that YouTube allows me to do now that I've achieved over 1,000 subscribers. So thank you to all of you who have supported me all this time. Thank you so much. And without further ado, let's get started on episode 194. Michel is her name, and she is a viewer request. I do not have her in any of my files, so it was a treat to get to know Marie a little bit better. So Marie was born in 1637 in Olay, in Normandy, in the parish of Saint-Vivien. Her parents were Pierre Michel and Catherine Dubourg. The Saint Vivien church where she comes from is the only church in Normandy to be devoted to Saint Vivien, whose relics were brought to Rouen in 1459. The church is also noted for having three naves. The church was built in 1358 and enlarged in the mid-15th century. Now, Rouen, which is a city on the River Seine in northern France, is the capital of the region of Normandy. And it has an amazing historical story, and it was at one time the largest city in medieval Europe. It played a prominent role in both English and French histories from the 11th Joan of Arc was tried and buried alive here in 1431 in this area. Rouen is a city of cultural and educational significance. And in a small little trivia, it was from this area that the Statue of Liberty sailed in June of 1885. So here you have the picture of Saint-Vivien. You have kind of the downtown, if you will, or the oldest part of Rouen. And we have an aerial view of Rouen and the River Seine. After her father's death, Marie would leave on September 25th, 1667. She brought with her a dowry worth about 150 pounds. She would select, and he would select her. His name, Charles Moret, and he was born in 1641 in the commune called La Forêt-sur-Sèvre in France. Just so you know, it means the forest on the River Sèvre. And his parents were Pierre Moret and Catherine Poinel. So you can see he's in Nouvelle-Aquitaine, in that region, and up north of Deux-Sèvres. And the church that he would have been baptized in, Saint Pierre. Charles was a miller by profession, and the town currently has about 2,000 people. So beautiful little rural area. So it didn't take Charles and Marie too long to find each other. By November 3rd, 1667, they were wed in Quebec City. So they would eventually settle down in Quebec City. Let's review a little bit about this amazing city. It is the capital city of the province of Quebec. 500,000 people live directly in Quebec City. Quebec was originally named by the Algonquins, who named the area Quebec, Quebec, which in their native language meant where the river narrows. Quebec City lies where the St. Lawrence River narrows. Samuel de Champlain founded a French settlement here in 1608 and called it Ville de Québec, or Quebec City. The city walls, which surround it still, date back to this time period, making Quebec City the only city with remaining city walls north of Mexico in all of North America. There's so much to see in Quebec City, but I just wanted to show you one picture in particular, which is, and I kind of like to imagine that they would have seen this, that this would have been something that Marie would have been able to look at. Le Maison Jacquette, it's the oldest private residence in Quebec. It dates from 1675. And if you'd like to see it, it is actually home to a famous restaurant, appropriately called Aux Anciens Canadiens. And then we have on the bottom screen, it is kind of the oldest shopping center. It's claimed to be the oldest commercial district in North America. It's called Le Petit Champlain. And then I have pictures of old maps of Quebec City, just to give you that feel. So guess what? They moved to Saint Augustin de Damas. Those of you who saw my previous video, this I didn't plan it this way. Both of these women on episode 193 and 194 ended up in Saint Augustin. Let's review. This tiny community of Saint Augustin de Damas is where 17 filles du roi eventually settled, which is a large amount for such a small place. The history of the place is that in 1647, Georges Giroux, the Lord of Mar, is given the seigneury that includes the small village. By 1668, the territory begins to be occupied. It was then called Damas. By 1671, a community mill was established at Lake Saint-Augustin by the son of the original lord, also named Jean. By 1685, Paul Augustin, Giroux de Mar, becomes the third seigneur of the community. The name of the parish most probably comes from his first name. In 1691, the establishment of this parish is recognized. Although there are no official documents that prove this date, it's the unofficial start of the parish. And at this time, there are about 200 people living here. And this amazing society of Saint Augustin de Damas, this is where Marie Michel would have, where they would have taken their land and where she was found. In the map, and you can see all the filles du roi in a row and how they would have known each other. Just amazing. So the family begins, but we only have one surviving child. Françoise would marry Jean Pourreau and have 3 children, 2 of whom would survive. She then would marry Mathieu Raby and have 3 children, all of whom would make it. Their second son, Pierre, died at 8 years of age, and Anne would die at 10. So Marie would pass away in the hospital at the age of 70 in February of 1704. Charles would follow her a little over 8 months later. They're both buried presumably in the Hôtel Dieu cemetery as they died in the hospital. He had reached the age of 77. They had been married approximately 27 years, at their death. What's really interesting to me, and it's kind of why I wanted to explore this, is that by 1729, they had only 13 descendants. And yet there is a viewer out there who is a descendant. So I think that's amazing. So I would love to know, did that line continue to grow and flourish much more than the beginnings of it? So please let me know if you're related, because I would really, really like to know how this line grew. I urge you to look into the Société d'Histoire de Saint-Augustin de Damas if this is your lineage, because they have so many resources to assist. So definitely check them out, and I have posted the link in the notes. As always, these are the resources that I use continuously. I wanted to draw your attention to the Quebec Genealogical E-Society to kind of put the spotlight. I've given webinars for this group, and it's a very inexpensive yearly fee. They have lots and lots of resources and are very active in terms of, because they're an e-society, that's all they do. So everything can be, so you can join and be anywhere. Which I thought was really neat. And they've been around for maybe, I want to say 5 years or so. So definitely check them out, okay? And check out all the other addresses that I put there in case you are trying to do some more research. That we end episode 194. The story of Marie and Charles is one in which we're really looking at an older couple who had a few children, who didn't leave a lot of descendants, but their life meant something, and that they were part of Saint Augustin de Damas and contributed is important. And we want to acknowledge that, and we want to honor their sacrifice, and we want to remember them. So thank you to Charles and Marie for being there and for what you have done, because even though there were only 13 descendants as of 1729, somebody out there is your lineage, and you can be proud of that. So before I let you go, let's say a shout out to my patrons and supporters. I couldn't do what I do without your support, not only monetarily, but also your words of wisdom and sometimes critiques and sometimes just yay. I really, really appreciate it. So with that, I bid you adieu and au revoir until I see you on episode 195.